It is inarguable, finally, that before this attack, the plight of the Palestinian people in Gaza was completely unacceptable. Many will see the control that Israel has wielded in the last week as evidence that it's an unhealthy control over the people of Gaza and indeed potentially of the West Bank as well. My next guest will certainly be arguing that very strongly, that until what they see as the oppression of the Palestinian people is properly dealt with, that there will always be this kind of, I mean, you can call last weekend what you like, to me it's a disgusting abomination, but there will always be angry people in Palestine wanting to break out of what they see as oppression. What do you say to that?
Let's just check the facts from 2000. Actually, Gaza was the case study for how the world will look without Israeli control on Palestinian area and territory. 2005, Israel withdraws to the international border, and people believe that Gaza will become a Middle East Singapore. And look what happened. So actually, it's the other way around. From 2000 to 2005, Israel doesn't have any settlements, doesn't have any territorial demands from the Palestinians. Instead of turning Gaza to a flourishing city, they took all the international support, and there was massive support, and they took it to build this underneath tunnel city that became a terror city, an evil city. We saw the results and its ugly face on last Saturday.
But you wouldn't deny that the living conditions of people in the Gaza Strip, for example, have been completely unacceptable.
And Piers, who should we blame for that? Israel doesn't control the Gaza Strip since 2005.
Is Israel blameless?
I would say that Israel, after...
It's not blameless.
I would say Israel, no country in the world is perfect. But after 2005, you need to blame the effective control of Hamas that abused the population, that kept on using all the international support just for one cause, to harming innocent Israelis.
Watch this interview or this debate between Piers Morgan and Israel ambassador to the United Kingdom. And please share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section about what you think. So let's watch.
Just 199 of the people are now kept hostage in Gaza, and I'm thinking about young children, thinking about a girl that has autism and she's disabled. I'm thinking about Holocaust survivors. I think we've never experienced anything like that as the Israeli people. We experience wars, we experience terror attacks. Never since Israel was established, we experienced anything that was as barbaric, as dishuman, as...
Where were you when you heard what happened?
I was in Israel. I was staying at my parents-in-law's house, and 6 o'clock in the morning when the first alarm came, we woke up, and I think it was 8:30 when the second alarm came in a small city next to Tel Aviv, and I told my husband, this is serious. And from an instinct feeling, because of the sirens going up and down, I had a feeling something really bad came up, and I turned my phone on Shabbat, and I realized this is a war. And I wanted to tell to everyone who listens and follows Israel for many years, I think we never had such a clear event that every country should protect its people. I mean, you said it in your great opening, and I want to echo that. This is one of those moments in a nation's life that a country cannot carry on without providing the very basic obligation that every country has to its people. We need to protect our children. We are out there in Gaza, not in order to revenge, not in order to punish. I don't agree with any of those definitions.
It is partly that, though.
Let me just say why we're doing that. We're doing that to make sure that my children, my friends' children, and every child in Israel will be protected. After we've seen what happened to our border, after we've seen what those barbaric terrorists from Hamas came in and they beheaded babies' heads. I mean, the fact that those small babies, you know, we saw in the Telegraph, wrapped in those bandages. I mean, this is something breaks the heart of every parent. And you cannot see that. And the horrific photographs and everything documented by Hamas, the fact they put children together and burned them alive, the fact they wanted to choke people in their homes by putting them on fire, those type of barbaric actions, and I'll tell you more than that. After identifying, unfortunately, 1,300 Israelis that were brutally murdered, the people were recognizing the bodies. They said 80% of the bodies being tortured. And our president just exposed a booklet that basically showed that it was part of their way of action, that they wanted to torture the people. It was part of their terror actions, raping innocent young women, taking hostage a Holocaust survivor. I mean, this is really...
I saw the footage of that woman who'd survived the Holocaust being
Yes.
taken away, and all I was struck by was she was completely calm. She was staring ahead, and she wasn't giving them a second of her own feelings in that moment. I thought that was just extraordinary, given what she had obviously gone through as a young person.
But let's join all the international community, including Prime Minister Sunak today in Parliament, that said all those people kept in hostage must be released now. And I think this is Israel's demand, and this is one of the aims of this war, is to bring them back home.
No, I agree.
199
And let's
people.
also not be afraid, as the BBC is seemingly afraid to do, to call this what it is, an act of terror. These are terrorists.
I think we were very vocal about what we think
What do you feel
it.
about the BBC refusing to call them terrorists?
So I think if the BBC stands for accuracy and if the BBC stands for the truth, it's very simple. I mean, this is what terrorism is, and you cannot find any better example of terrorism. So I really think everyone should call it by its name, and it's terrorism. And I think one more thing we need to say at this time, because Israel is now in one of its, I would say this is not an existential threat, but this is a war on existence, because we cannot exist if our children cannot be safe in their homes. So
Israel has decided, and people will absolutely understand this, that Hamas has got to be eradicated in the way that ISIS was eradicated. But ISIS was eradicated in a process that also involved a lot of innocent people getting killed along the way. Clearly, in what is coming now in Gaza, a lot of innocent people on the Palestinian side are going to die as well. How many is too many? And I don't have the number. I just talk about this debate about proportionality. I'm struggling to see what is proportionate that meets the scale of what happened last weekend. Let me make that clear. I don't have the answer here. But there's a fine line that Israel is going to tread between doing what it can to get the hostages out, paying back, revenge, retaliation, whatever you want to call it for what has happened.
I call it defense.
Okay.
I call it
defense. I mean, whatever you call it, obviously that's part of the motivation too. And ultimately, you want to get rid of Hamas. But Hamas are embedded with civilians. We know this. So the civilian death toll is going to be very high. And the question for the international community is, at what point does the high moral ground, which I think Israel has at the moment, because of the scale of what happened last weekend, at what point could you risk losing that?
So first of all, Israel is a moral country, works according to the international law. And according to the international law, we are allowing all the Palestinians to go to the south area of Gaza in order to make sure they'll be safe, including creating shelters for them with the international community organizations to make sure they will be safe. The only thing...
let me ask you on this.
Just one second. Let me just finish. The only thing that stands as a barrier from those Palestinians to get into a safe place is the fact that Hamas is preventing from its own population to get to a safer place because it doesn't care about its people. He's using international support, not in order to give them, as you said, water and electricity, but actually in order to fire on Israel. And as we speak, everyone is talking about this horrific massacre. But sometimes we forget that fighting from Hamas carries on. As we speak today, Parliament being evacuated, the center of Israel being bombarded by those rockets. And we keep having over 6,000 rockets just in the last week. So think about it. It needs to have electricity and all those manufacturing. What do you think supports that? So it's Hamas basically taking from its own population and using it against innocent Israelis.
I heard
so
you. Okay,
blame Hamas.
I hear you.
Blame Hamas.
I hear you. But I also heard you this morning saying there's no humanitarian crisis here. By any definition of a humanitarian crisis.
Let me explain that.
That is happening. You may apportion blame to Hamas on your side.
Let me explain.
I don't think you can deny there's a humanitarian crisis.
Let me explain that. I'm a woman. I'm a mother. I have a sympathy to any innocent child, any innocent person in the world. We don't want to harm any innocent people. We want to target the militants. We want to target those terrorists. We want to target the facilities, the capabilities. this is what we want to do. And the reason I said that, because at the moment, in Gaza, you have supplies of water, you have supplies of food, and unfortunately, wait a second, some of it being
some
abused.
say the water has run out in many areas.
And I want to explain why. 90% of the water in Gaza is not supplied by Israel. This is like a myth. Israel has just 10% of this. 90% of it is based on their aquifers, and they're doing that by using machines. And the machines, basically, in the electricity, they're being abused at the moment by Hamas in order to fire my own hometown.
I understand
and this is what happens. So just think how irrational it is that the international community, knowing that Hamas started this war, is blaming Israel for what it didn't start it.
I'm not blaming Israel.
No, okay? All I'm saying is...
I understand the scale of what happened last weekend means that there must be an unprecedented response.
Exactly.
I think any country in the world that suffered what Israel suffered last weekend would launch an unprecedented response. I understand that. But I also understand in my modern history that after 9/11, America launched a series of unprecedented responses. It invaded Iraq, which I felt at the time was an illegal invasion. That caused ISIS to grow in huge amounts of power and then kill many, many people. Afghanistan was a huge mess and continues to be a mess and is now back in the hands of the Taliban and so on. There's not a lot of evidence that a big invasion of a place like Gaza will do anything other than potentially make the situation worse. That's my concern.
So can I give you my answer? Life is about choosing between alternatives. If you have a perfect alternative, you would have gone for the perfect alternative. But going back even for British history, I mean, you don't want to go back to American history by attacking Mosul and killing so many civilians. And I personally think fighting ISIS is a justified cause because ISIS didn't do any good for civil society. And going back to your own history, when you fight Nazi Germany, you knew that there were many, many civilians got attacked from your attacks on German cities. Dresden was a symbol, but you attacked Hamburg, you attacked other cities, and altogether, it was over 600,000 civilian Germans that got killed. And was it worth it in order to defeat Nazi Germany? And the answer was yes.
Let me ask you this.
Just to finish, my point is we don't target civilians. We definitely give them an alternative and a place to find a shelter. And we are trying to minimize casualties because our target is just to remove Hamas from our border in order to have my children to sleep peace and quiet in their bedroom.
I understand, but it is also true that nearly 3 times as many Palestinians have died in the last week than were killed in the outrage on October the 7th, and then that number is going to go much higher.
This is exactly why I think it's unmoral equivalence, because those people got killed in Israel, children, women, and men, were brutally targeted and murdered in the most barbaric way.
I agree with you.
No, but the people got caught in a crossfire in Gaza are people we didn't want to kill. Some of them are terrorists. You need to remember that. And we are targeting those cruel people that are based in schools, based in hospitals, and according, by the way, to the international law, Israel is allowed to launch a military attack every time there is a place that puts Israelis in danger, which it is. The facilities of Hamas are based in civilian facilities.
Do you feel, you talked about being a mother, a parent, do you feel on a personal level genuine sympathy with the innocent Palestinians who are getting caught up in this?
Absolutely. I mean, my thoughts are to every single individual that is caught in a war zone. Now, but you need to understand, every country has first and foremost responsibility to its own people. So if Israel will fail to defend my children and other people's children, like we've seen those parents that had to, be in a shelter, hearing other, I will never forget this video that you hear parents that hear one of their children get executed. I mean, those are things that are totally horrific. So when this is the reality, you need to understand there was a misconcept of the understanding that Hamas can be a tiger, can live by you. No, this tiger, it went out of the cage and it did what it did, and it's a barbaric action.
How do we get to peace after this?
So that's a great question. I think you cannot have peace. I mean, this, again, going back to your history, you cannot have any type of negotiation with this type of barbarism that is based on jihadi ideology. Hamas Charter is calling to annihilation of Israel and total destruction. So it has no political vision. So we need to have, from the other side, we need to have people who want to live peacefully with Israel. We've seen the Arab world opens the gate to Israel. We've seen the Abraham Accords. We've seen Saudi wants to normalize with Israel. I believe the future can be better without terror organizations. And this is why Israel is fighting this war, by the way, for the West as well. This is not just Israel's fight. This is the Western world's fight. Just like you had your attacks in 7/7, the Manchester Arena. It's the same type of ideology that attacking innocent people. We need to fight it together.
It is inarguable, finally, that before this attack, the plight of the Palestinian people in Gaza was completely unacceptable. Many will see the control that Israel has wielded in the last week as evidence that it's an unhealthy control over the people of Gaza and indeed potentially of the West Bank as well. My next guest will certainly be arguing that very strongly, that until what they see as the oppression of the Palestinian people is properly dealt with, that there will always be this kind of, I mean, you can call last weekend what you like. To me, it's a disgusting abomination. But there will always be angry people in Palestine wanting to break out of what they see as oppression. What do you say to that?
Let's just check the facts from 2000. Actually, Gaza was the case study for how the world will look without Israeli control on Palestinian area and territory. 2005, Israel withdraws to the international border, and people believe that Gaza will become a Middle East Singapore. And look what happened. So actually, it's the other way around. From 2000 to 2005, Israel doesn't have any settlements, doesn't have any territorial demands from the Palestinians. Instead of turning Gaza to a flourishing city, they took all the international support, and there was massive support, and they took it to build this underneath tunnel city that became a terror city, an evil city. We saw the results and its ugly face on last Saturday.
But you wouldn't
Israel.
deny that the living conditions of people in the Gaza Strip, for example, have been completely unacceptable.
And Piers, who should we blame for that? Israel doesn't control the Gaza Strip since 2005.
Is Israel blameless?
I would say that Israel, after
it's not blameless.
I would say Israel, no country in the world is perfect. But after 2005, you need to blame the effective control of Hamas that abused the population, that kept on using all the international support just for one cause, to harming innocent Israelis, to fire all those rockets that have been fired on our cities for years by years. And this is where every civilized person should stand and to say, we saw the real face of Hamas on Saturday. They are there to kill innocent Jews in their beds.
I really love Piers Morgan, right? You see the way he pressed her just for her to confirm or to affirm that Israel somehow has contributed to the way things are right now, that Israel is not blameless on what is ongoing right now. And she tried her best not to give a direct answer by saying, oh no country is blameless. That wasn't the question. The question was, don't Israel share part of the blame as to what is going on right now? Should Israel be blameless on the problem we are now facing? Yes or no? And she was like, no, we shouldn't blame Israel. And she said that Israel pulled out of Gaza and let Gaza manage their affairs. Is that really true? Because if that were to be the case, how come Israel has the power to cut off electricity, water, food, and medication from Gaza? How come Israel has that much power to kind of like blockade Gaza? If Gaza was really that independent, how come they still get most of their basic need from Israel? And how come whatever that goes into Gaza must pass through Israel? Why? So the whole problem that everyone is trying to dodge is Israel has never been fair to the Palestinians in Gaza. And that is the bottom line. And until we all accept this simple fact, we won't go anywhere. And no matter how much people like her and Ben Shapiro and Benjamin Netanyahu try their best to avoid answering this question, everyone knows what the answer is, and everyone can clearly see what the problem is and how the people in Gaza have been marginalized, have been subjected to inhumane treatment. And that alone has brought in a lot of rage and anger in the minds of the Palestinians living in Gaza. That is the simple truth. And no matter how long we deny it, no matter how long people from the West, people in the international community try to deny it, when you just go online and look at the facts, do not listen to what the Palestinians are saying or what the Israelis are saying. Just listen to neutral body give you their take on the whole issue. You will see how much injustice had been made to the people living in Gaza. You will feel pity for the people in Gaza. And she is here trying to deny everything. We pulled out of Gaza and we thought it would become the Singapore of the Middle East. But the Hamas militant or terrorist group took all the foreign aid and turned Gaza into a terrorist state. Is that the whole truth? Is that really the entire truth? What about the West Bank? That they have been encroaching. They have been carrying a lot of weight. They have been harassing the Palestinians in West Bank. What about that? Is Hamas also in the West Bank? How come there have been killings in the West Bank? How come there have been accusations of Israelis harassing the people in West Bank? And as it stands now, we are getting the latest news that 3,000 Palestinians living in Gaza has been killed, while 12,500 wounded. And in Israel, 1,500 people were killed by the Hamas terrorists, while 199 of them were adopted. So things are just getting more severe by the day. But you guys out there, let us know your take on what Israel's ambassador to the United Kingdom said. Is she right or is she wrong? Let us know in the comment section below. And also, please do not forget to like this video, share this video, follow our Facebook page, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel because like always, we appreciate your support. Thank you and see you in the next one.